This year's prize is about a rechargeable world.
Today, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry honored batteries, specifically lithium-ion batteries.
2 Americans and a Japanese researcher for their work in developing the
2019
lithium-ion
Nobel
battery.
Prize in Chemistry.
Binghamton University has a Nobel laureate.
John B. Goodenough, M. Stanley Whittingham, and Akira Yoshino.
Distinguished Professor M. Stanley Whittingham.
Stanley Whittingham, Binghamton University in
Stan
New York.
Whittingham.
Whittingham developed the first working lithium battery in the early 1970s,
making possible a fossil fuel-free society.
This is something that the lithium-ion battery community has been looking forward to for the last several years.
We didn't ever think that it was if, it was just when. Woohoo! On behalf of Binghamton University, welcome. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. I especially want to thank all of our elected officials and community leaders who are here this afternoon. We all thrive because of these relationships. And of course, I want to recognize all the members of the Binghamton University Council, our alumni board, and foundation board who are here today and help support and sustain the university's vision. And most of all, I want to welcome all the faculty, staff, and students who are here today to celebrate the success of a longtime member of our campus community. This has been a great week for Binghamton, but especially for our guest of honor, Distinguished Professor of Chemistry, Material Science, and Engineering, M. Stanley Whittingham. You may have read something about this in the news. It seems Professor Whittingham has been named a 2019 Nobel laureate in chemistry. As you might have guessed, this is big news and cause for celebration in honor of him and as a recognition of our university. And we have some special guests here today to help celebrate. With us is Merryl Tisch, chairman of the State University of the New York Board of Trustees. Chancellor of the State University of New York, Christina Johnson. Provost and Executive Vice President Don Neiman. President of the Binghamton University Student Association, Emma Ross. And the man of the hour, the day, the week, the month, the decade, and 2 centuries, Stanley Whittingham. Our first speaker is the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the State University of New York, Merrill Tisch. Merrill Tisch was appointed chairman just last month and has served on the SUNY Board of Trustees since 2017. Prior to that, she served as chancellor of the New York State Board of Regents, on which she had served for more than 20 years. Her knowledge of education at all levels has been informed by a career that has included teaching, community service, and philanthropy, including the founding of the Tisch Cancer Institute at Mount Sinai Hospital. A graduate of Barnard College, she also earned an MA in education from New York University and a Doctor of Education from the Teachers College at Columbia University. Please give a warm welcome to the Chairman of the SUNY Board of Trustees, Merrill Tisch.
Good evening, almost. Good day, good afternoon, good year, good everything. What an extraordinary moment we find ourselves in, all based on the work and the scholarship of a humble, decent man. I come here today accompanied by Trustee Eunice Lewin. Where are you, Eunice? And I thank you so much for being here, Eunice. And my remarks are all of this from the governor, but I told him last night when I saw him that I was going to summarize the beautiful words that were written as a proclamation by New York State for our illustrious scholar. Whereas in celebration of his well-deserved Nobel Prize, all New Yorkers are honored to join in congratulating and recognizing Professor Whittingham for his history of extraordinary contributions to science and his indelible impact on the world's transition to cleaner energy. Now, therefore, and I'm speaking on behalf of our governor, I, Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby confer this special citation in recognition of Professor M. Stanley Whittingham, in honor of his award-winning and pioneering research and his invaluable contributions to science and New York's great legacy of innovation.
Thank you, Chairman. Our next speaker, Christina Johnson, joined SUNY as its 13th chancellor in September 2017, overseeing the nation's largest system of comprehensive higher education. Prior to joining SUNY, Chancellor Johnson was co-founder and CEO of a clean energy infrastructure company operating 19 hydroelectric power plants in the eastern United States. She served as Undersecretary of Energy at the U.S. Department of Energy, as well as Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Johns Hopkins University and Dean of the Pratt School of Engineering at Duke University. Among the numerous prizes and honors she's been awarded, Chancellor Johnson is a recipient of the Dennis Gaber Prize for Creativity and Innovation in Modern Optics and the John Fritz Medal in 2008, which is widely considered the highest award in engineering. Please welcome the Chancellor of the State University of New York, Christina Johnson.
Thank you, President Stenger. You know, when a president texts you at 6:15 in the morning, it's usually not good news, unless it's the second week in October and Wednesday. And indeed, I was so thrilled to get that text that day. It was amazing. And frankly, I'm so relieved to be here today to have the opportunity to congratulate Professor M. Stanley Whittingham in person. You see, I called Dr. Whittingham on the Wednesday that the Nobel Prize was announced. He was in Germany. And I tried to offer congratulations then, but it was a very brief conversation because I was too choked up to speak. So I mumbled congratulations, then hung up. Unfortunately, I remember that they have caller ID, so he knew exactly who was calling him. But all kidding aside, I am so happy that what is arguably the single most important invention of our lifetimes is being fully celebrated. Lightweight, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries that not only power our nifty cell phones, but these batteries also represent the best shot we have at addressing the onslaught of climate chaos and allowing cars that don't require fossil fuels to run, and for the storage of zero-carbon renewable energy from solar and wind power. It is M. Stanley Whittingham's invention of the lithium-ion battery and the follow-on efforts of his fellow laureates, Dr. John Goodenough, what a great name, and Dr. Akira Yoshino, refining Stan's invention, that are allowing us to progress towards a post-fossil fuel world. In 2010, when I was Undersecretary of Energy, I spearheaded the creation of a Strategic Technology Energy Plan, or STEP, that would get the United States to 83% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The first important steps, if you will, called for decarbonizing the electric sector and electrifying personal transportation. The key to both of these initiatives working is the ability to store energy when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. High-density battery storage using lithium-ion and other material compositions will allow us to switch from fossil fuels to electricity for heating, cooling, and personal transportation. The STEP plan relied on proven technologies, including lithium-ion batteries. It was doable, it was reasonable in terms of cost, and we utilized these technologies to set aggressive targets for growing our renewable energy capacity. And though I wish we had stepped further along the decarbonization path, without Stan's work, there would be no such path forward today. As the states assume leadership on climate change, again, Stan has made the New York State Community Leadership and Climate Protection Act, legislation signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo on July 18th of this year, with goals of 70% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% by 2040, practical, plausible, and doable, along with the state goals of 3,000 megawatts of energy storage by 2030 and 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind power generation by 2035. That is reason enough for happy tears for such a well-deserved Nobel. But I had other reasons too, and that was overwhelming pride in Binghamton University and in the SUNY system as a whole. As a system, we serve 1.4 million students a year, and 1 out of 3 graduating high school seniors in New York State chooses a SUNY school. We're the most powerful engine of opportunity for people of all backgrounds in New York State, and our individual schools are ranked among the greatest forces for upward mobility in the country. But we offer more than access. We offer sheer excellence in both research and education. And M. Stanley Whittingham embodies that excellence, and I'm so pleased that the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has recognized one of our own. So Stan, you have my deepest gratitude for heaping glory on the State University of New York and for saving civilization while you're at it. Thank you.
One of the things that distinguishes Stan and all Binghamton faculty is that our researchers are actively engaged with undergraduate students. Binghamton is a rare place where even first-year students can interact with and learn from outstanding faculty mentors in our first-year research immersion program. And now, some lucky students are ready to tell their parents what it means to work directly with a Nobel laureate. Given the importance of the student perspective, I'd like to invite Emma Ross to the podium. Emma is a senior, double majoring in political science and psychology with a minor in forensic health. She represents our student body as president of the Student Association and is applying for law school next year. Good luck, Emma. Please welcome Emma Ross.
Hello, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to be part of honoring Professor Whittingham today. As leader of the student body, I often have a chance to speak with our students, and so often when people decide to come to me, it's with a concern or a complaint. But this week has been an absolute breath of fresh air to see the joy the student community feels as we celebrate this enormous accomplishment with you. Professor Whittingham has revolutionized the world that we live in and made so much of the incredible technology we use every single day possible. From cell phones to electric cars, the very fabric of the world that we live in has been forever altered by the work Professor Whittingham has done. And I'm sure the only time he ever regrets it is when students are able to text during his lectures. In a world with increasing concern for climate change, the lithium-ion battery is revolutionary for creating a more sustainable world. For so many of the students here at Binghamton, the work you do is a beacon of light, reminding us that there is always hope and that there are people who are hard at work to make sure our world is a better place. The first time I learned about the Nobel Prize, I was in elementary school, and we were talking about Marie Curie and the amazing work that she did. The Nobel Prize then, and even now for so many of us, seems like this surreal and almost unattainable honor, and yet in our midst is one of the people incredible enough to receive it. Knowing that one day my children will learn about Professor Whittingham's work is crazy, and I think it will definitely give me bragging rights to say that you were a professor at my university. Professor Whittingham winning the Nobel Prize shows the world what we here at Binghamton already know, that our professors have some of the greatest minds that this world has to offer, that receiving an education here at Binghamton University is a privilege. It proves that we are one of the best universities to learn at, to study at, and that when you receive an education here, your learning goes far beyond the classroom. Here you have the opportunity not only to learn from incredible professors, but to work and research alongside them as well. Most importantly, however, this shows Binghamton students that anyone has the power to change the world. It shows us that our ideas have power, and it gives us faith in our abilities and what we are capable of. Professor Whittingham embodies the drive, passion, and commitment that is necessary to achieve something great. Thank you, Professor, for inspiring us. Your impact goes far beyond your department, and thank you for giving every student here one more reason to be proud to call Binghamton our home. Thank you.
Kind of says it all, doesn't it? Thank you, Emma. All right, who's left? I think I can speak for all of us today who know Stan by saying that there is really no one more deserving of a Nobel Prize than he is. Stan came to Binghamton 31 years ago in 1988, and by then he was already a superstar among us engineering wonks as the founder of the rechargeable lithium-ion battery technology during his work at Exxon Research and Engineering. While there, he patented the first intercalated electrodes, critical for the development of modern rechargeable batteries. As a pioneer in battery technologies, his work paved the way for virtually every portable electronic device we use today, and perhaps even more, his work is making for a greener future. By the time he came to Binghamton, he was already someone who had helped change the world, revolutionizing the way we store and use energy, with all the commercial and industrial applications that entails. So his coming to Binghamton was exciting news back then, and he certainly has lived up to his potential. He's continued his research while at Binghamton as one of the university's most productive researchers, most recently as the director of the Northeast Center for Chemical Energy Storage, where he's been working to develop the next generation of lithium-ion batteries. At Binghamton, he's helped build the university into, if you'll pardon the pun, a powerhouse of battery and alternative energy research. He's the author of more than 200 publications and the recipient of millions of dollars in federal grants for battery development. He established our materials science program and spent 5 years serving as the university's vice president for research in addition to his teaching and research work. In the classroom, he's regarded as a remarkable teacher, helping mentor hundreds of students into careers in academia and industry. His students love him. They say he teaches them how to be scientists with one eye on the basic research and the other eye open for unique ways to apply this knowledge. I know it's been a remarkable busy time for Stan since learning of the prize, but throughout, Stan has been very gracious and complimentary to Binghamton University in all the interviews he's been giving. I can only imagine what Stan is going through. So I want to congratulate Stan and thank him for allowing us to bathe in some of the reflected glory that this news has brought the campus. But most of all, I want to thank him for his many years of work and his discoveries that have helped make the world a better place to live. And now, our guest of honor, the one that all this is for, please welcome Distinguished Professor of Chemistry and Material Science and 2019 Nobel Laureate in Chemistry, Stanley Whittingham.
Thank you all for your very kind comments, and thank you everybody for coming here. I was asked to say a little bit about my history, who I am, where I came from, so you get some idea of what I'm about and how I think and so on. So you should all know by now I'm not a Native American. But I tell my students now when they grumble, there's too many foreigners teaching us, I tell them, I've been an American longer than you have. So, a bit of background. I came from a little town in what is Lincolnshire, England. I went to what some of you would call a private school here. It's a public school in England, but I went on a fee-paid basis from the local authority. This was an exciting time, and at that time, the teachers were, I would say, brilliant. They're, a lot of them World War II veterans who really were dedicated to teaching. And there were two teachers in particular that entrapped me, I should say, in science, hooked me, and I've never lost that attraction. One was a Major Lamb, who was my chemistry teacher, and the other one was a guy called Squibbs Bowman, who was my physics teacher. To put things in perspective, in England in those days, you took what we call ordinary level exams when you were 15 years old. You were expected to pass 10 or 12 of those. Then he went on to 5th and 6th forms, and he only studied 3 subjects. So in my case, I was restricted to math, physics, and chemistry, and I had those great teachers, but in my last year, I had another slight, shall we say, contamination. I got accepted into Oxford, and to get into Oxford, you had to know Latin. So I had a very good headmaster, Basil Deed. He took it upon himself to teach me enough Latin so I could get into Oxford and not have any problems. You also had to pass 2 other language exams in those days. So England at that time thought language was very important. I am concerned these days that maybe this country is saying languages aren't so important. Please, President, Chancellor, keep languages on your screen and keep my wife happy at the same time. And I should say, research is always very interdisciplinary. Not in your little old cubby hole. I think most people don't realize at Oxford you had to do 1 year of research to get your bachelor's degree. And it was the American Air Force that supported me during that time, not a British company. That was Sputnik era, and they wanted some basic studies on how atoms react with nose cones. I did that, that was published. I then got my PhD. And the PhD was also interesting in the sense that I got a 3-year award from the Gas Council. And the goal there was to convert coal gas into a natural gas. I got that award in May. In July that year, they struck natural gas in the North Sea. So they told me, we're not interested in that anymore. You've got your award, you do whatever you like with it. So I was free to do my own research. Those were exciting times in Oxford. Obviously we had lots of Nobel laureates and other key people. But at Oxford, you're basically on your own. You'll have an advisor, in my case, Peter Dickens. He was a great advisor, helped me along all the way, and I'm sorry to say he died at the beginning of this month, just before the Nobel Prizes. So he enabled me to go along, and then at the end of my PhD, there was a tendency of people to go to North America. A lot went to Canada on the Northeast, and I said, no, no, no. I want to go somewhere where the sun shines. Now, it's a very important aspect. So I went to Stanford University, and Bob Huggins was my helper and advisor there. He helped us along a great deal, and he gave me some other training. After I'd been there 2 months, he was seconded to the Department of Defense to run all the materials labs. So he said, Stan, you're in charge for the next 2 years. So I basically took over his group for 2 years. Very successful time, I should say. During that 2 years, something even more important happened. I met my wife at Stanford. And we didn't waste any time. Within, I think, 9 months, we were married. So my wife was a graduate student in modern languages, and she's now a professor at Oswego, still teaching modern languages and Latin American literature and poetry. So those were exciting times because those days Sputnik was a real issue. The Americans were afraid the Russians were going ahead. So we'd get funding agencies coming to us saying, please write us a grant and we'll give you money. So they competed over you. Totally the opposite of what it is today. So we had funding from the EPA, from the Navy, and some other agencies. And I still remember when Bob Huggins went to Washington, the program officer from the Navy called me up and said, we're going to have to cancel your grant. He's left, but we won't cancel it for a month. Don't buy anything over $100, but spend this $50,000 you still got there. And having a lot of helpers, we managed to do that. So we got a lot of good work out of that, and really some of the battery work started at Stanford. There then was a big recruiting drive on the East Coast. Both Bell Labs and Exxon decided they're going to start up basic energy research, and Exxon in particular decided they want to be an energy company, not an oil company. So they had about a dozen people that year. 6 of them were from Stanford. And I have to thank Ted Jabal, who was really the intermediary in sending people to both Exxon and Bell Labs. So I went to Exxon. I should say I turned down an offer from Cornell at the same time. But those were the great days of American industry. You know, you had Bell Labs, General Electric, IBM, Exxon, DuPont, all had large fundamental research labs. And you could do more easily basic research in industry than you could in universities. Were going through a slight budget freeze at the time. So we had great times at Exxon. I was a researcher for 2 or 3 years. We came up with the idea of the battery. We needed more money to do it, so I said, you're going to New York City, you're meeting with a committee of the Exxon board, and basically what we call an elevator speech. They said, don't make it too technical, you've probably got 5 minutes. And it turned out to be about 10 minutes, I think, and 2 or 3 days later, they agreed to give extra funding to Exxon Research Company to actually build an engineering activity and then later on a manufacturing capability. So those days, things move fast. Oil companies treated research like drilling oil wells. Maybe 10% work out, but we'll take a risk on them. So I worked on batteries at Exxon for a few years, and then, okay, you can do that, we'll make you a group head, and I was a lab director, and all that went well. Then he said, well, you can manage everything you know about. How about managing something you don't know about? So I was appointed division director of chemical engineering. That was in Florham Park, and if any of you know what Florham Park is, Exxon in the end sold that to the New York Jets for their training field. So I had a good 4 years in Exxon, but the issue in the engineering side of Exxon is it's boom or bust, and that was the syn fuel's real boom. I was told to hire as many PhD and master's chemical engineers as I could. Before the last one was on board, Exxon was out of the synfuels business because it turns out shale wasn't, in fact, all that good a business deal, and mostly because they had environmental concerns. For every cubic foot of shale rock you dig up, you land up with about 3 cubic foot of dust. So they got out of that business. Coal liquefaction and coal gasification weren't ready yet, so they moved on. And at that time I said, I don't think I like management at this level. So I said, I want to go back to academia. So I came here, had a great time here. I chose Binghamton because you could interact across all the different departments. The students go to any department they liked, and the faculty would help them. This is not the case at most major universities where you have fiefdoms and the students in one group can't talk to the next group. So that was the great thing about here when I came. I think within a week of coming here, they said, Stan, by the way, we've started an Institute for Materials Research and you're the director. It wasn't, do you want to do this or not? I think a month or two later, the local section of the American Chemical Society came to me and said, by the way, you're the chairman next year. And I think maybe I came in 88, and in 93, the then provost came to me and said, well, she took me to a local diner for breakfast and said, we need a new VP of research. It's you or Dr. X. So you will do it, won't you? I think by the time I got to campus, everybody had seen us in the restaurant and the campus knew what was up. So I think, the VP of research job then was a great job. I'm not sure it's quite so easy now for Bagat, but terms I agreed upon was 60% time, and I would do the other 40% my own research. Well, you know what that means, it's 200% jobs. But no, those were good times when we were just beginning to turn around research here. We streamlined the whole system, and I think Paul Parker's still grumbling at me. We converted the research office over to totally a Mac operation. Got rid of those old-fashioned PCs. But Paul still had a printer, I think, until 2 or 3 years ago. The Apple printers lasted forever. So when I left the research office, in chemistry, there was a lot of students wanted to do materials-related activities. So we had a specialization in materials chemistry. That got going very strong, and it helped physics. And then the decision was made, maybe we should have a full program in materials science and engineering. The discussions went on for a while, and it was clearly not going anywhere. No, we want this, we want that, you can't have everything. So I think I was going to Narita in Japan, and I said, okay, I'll work on it. By the time I got to the other end, I'd written out the bulletin copy and everything and said, now we've got something to fight over. And I think within a month or two, we all got behind it. It took, I think, close to a year to get it through SUNY and the State Ed Department, but it's in place now. And I think at our first review, the outside reviewer said, you should really have a department. And we said, no, we'll make these other changes, which we did. So that's a thriving program. Research here went along very well for a long time. I had National Science Foundation funding from the beginning, so I got a grant within my first year. This grant was for starting professors. And there's nothing about age or anything else on there. So they said, apply for this, and they got it and said, yeah, we like it, but we didn't have you in mind for this. So what they said, we're going to fund it through a different part of the agency, and I had NSF funding, I think, for the next 25, 26 years. When I went to Japan on a Japanese scholarship for 2.5 months, this is equivalent to a NSF scholarship. So I spent that at the University of Tokyo. I think it was Elena who sent me a fax. There were no emails in those days, saying, you know, this DOE grant proposal is due in 2 days. Are you going to go in for it or not? And I said, maybe. So I hand wrote the whole proposal. We faxed it back to Elaine. She submitted it. and I've had DOE funding now since 1993, continuous funding. So I really have to thank the Department of Energy. They've done a tremendous amount for me, and the Department of Energy was at both the recent meetings out, as in Ulm, Germany, and Atlanta this week. And DOE folks there listen to what the Germans and the Chinese and the Japanese are doing in energy storage, and they're going all the way to fundamental understanding to full manufacturing in national facilities. So then industry can just pick it up. This is where the US and most of Europe have dropped the ball in the past. So I'm hoping this prize will raise the level of interest in energy storage, make it possible for this country to manufacture batteries and not have them all done in Japan, South Korea, or China, and then we'll have a real business going here. I'd just like to finish with a few remarks for students. Do what interests you. Don't do what's going to make you money, because in the end you'll be unhappy. Be willing to take risks. You won't make any breakthroughs unless you make some mistakes on the way. Okay? And really enjoy yourself in whatever you do. So I'd like to thank everybody here for coming. Thank you. There. And maybe I'll see you later at the reception. Thank you.
I know you know where Corning, New York is, and I know you probably know what Steuben Glass is. And this is a gift for you. It's pretty heavy. I'm going to put it back on the table so we don't drop it. But it is in recognition of your 2019 Nobel Prize. And Stan, I know you were busy yesterday, so you missed the State of the University address, but I got a lot of applause when I held up my Press and Sons. All 3 days you were on the cover. 3 days in a row you were on the front page of the Press and Sun, but I didn't think you wanted this version. You're welcome. You're so welcome. Oh, and Jill's going to come up and give you something too. And our Faculty Senate would like to present you with a proclamation as well. Jill?
Why do I have to follow him? Okay, so yes, I am the Faculty Senate Chair, Jill Dixon. I'm here with my colleague, Patrick Doyle. He's one of our SUNY University faculty senators. And we would like to present to you, Professor Whittingham, 2 resolutions of recognition. The first, this Saturday, the SUNY University Faculty Senate passed a resolution unanimously. And I've been told that this is the first time that has ever happened. So apparently, your achievement is the only thing that united them. And the second one was from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. We passed it this Tuesday on behalf of all Binghamton University faculty. I would just read at least a portion of it for everyone. Whereas the Nobel Prize is recognized as the highest achievement bestowed upon researchers and scholars within their discipline, which is given to reward the discoveries that have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. Whereas up to 2019, there have been 15 Nobel Award winners across all disciplines awarded to SUNY faculty members, none of whom were associated with Binghamton University. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, on behalf of the entire faculty of Binghamton University, One, congratulates distinguished Professor M. Stanley Whittingham for being awarded the 2019 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his leading role in the development of lithium-ion batteries and recognizes the impact of his research. And two, recognizes and honors distinguished Professor Whittingham's sustained, groundbreaking research and significant contributions to Binghamton University in particular by becoming the first Nobel laureate associated with Binghamton University. Congratulations.
I could do this forever. But that concludes our ceremony today. Please join us for a reception in the back. And if you see over here, there's a giant card for Stan, and we'll bring it in the back, and people can sign it and congratulate him on the giant card. Thank you for being here today. Congratulations again, Stan.